George Randolph Hearst, Sr.
That's right, the one that I have known and loved for many, many years. I'd like you to tell your many friends and special guests just what started you into working with the United States Senate Youth Program, which, by the way, I think everybody should know, was funded by the William Randolph Hearst Foundation. How did all this get started?
My husband and his brother Randolph had an idea of doing something for the high school students in America, for them to have a better view and understanding of the government. So they came up with this program, which is now an act of Congress, and it started 34 years ago. And I came along to work with my husband, really, and my brother-in-law. My involvement at that time was, I was Mrs. Hearst. I was the wife of George Randolph Hearst, as I said. And after many years into the program, my kids, they're all my kids, after they've been here, and they started calling me Mom.
That's right.
So
I can vouch for that.
said, well, you all have mothers, and so I will be your mom number 2, which I have become over all of these years.
All these 34 years.
And when they write to me, which I correspond with many, many of my former delegates through the years, and they'll write, Dear Mom number 2. And I cherish these letters. I have one wall in my home, in the office, that is, the whole wall is lined with letters from my former kids.
You know what I think it'd be nice for us to tell your friends, that these young people are very special. They're all, aren't they all student body officers?
Oh, yes. They are. They've all served their school levels, different...
like student body presidents?
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right. During some time of their high school years,
Yes.
because these are the high school students.
And they're mainly seniors in high school.
Yes.
Most of them. Some are junior.
Very few
level,
juniors.
but most of them seniors.
Right.
And Mrs. Hearst, these young people are certainly excellent in their academic side as well, aren't they? They're bright.
Oh, right. They're so bright and they're so smart. They scare me.
But they love you.
Well, I love them, and they know I love them.
You know, oh, by the way, I remember that your husband, George Hearst, said something to you and to me one day at the Mayflower Hotel, where you house these young people every year, and he called it some kind of a week. Do you remember what he said?
Oh, yes. Very well. Very.
Mrs. Hearst, I recall something that George Hearst, your wonderful husband, had to say about this week that you have back here with the young people, the United States Senate Youth Week. And he called it something. Do you remember what he said?
Very well.
You
yes.
do?
He called it Hell Week.
That's right.
And that's because we, in those days, were doing so much of the work ourselves, like stuffing the Senate Youth bags that we give each delegate
Right.
with different materials that they can use. And I remember 2 o'clock in the morning, we were stuffing Senate Youth bags. And he said, I'm not going to do this next year. I don't have to do this. I'm not going to stuff these bags. Well, the next year, we were stuffing bags at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we didn't have a real office here at the Mayflower Hotel at that time, so we sat in the on the mezzanine and did all the stuffing of the newspaper write-ups that for their hometown states, and so we really worked manually. But the Hell Week came because of the agenda and the places where we were going and all scheduled to go. We didn't have a minute to ourselves where the delegates meet the senators and the speakers and usually the President of the United States, and so they have an awakening of Washington that some of them have said to me, the 1 week here, they learn more than they do in a whole semester of school. So, because they're really one-on-one. And I've always said good kids aren't news. I mean, Johnny can be a 4.0 student, and his mother and father are honored, and the principal of the high school, and the different people involved in his trip to Washington. But if he steals a car, he's front page news. So that's why I say good kids aren't news. But
you know, you remind me of something else. You and George were so dedicated, and you have continued on being so dedicated for 34 years. Mom Hearst.
yeah.
Now, don't I remember that about Senator George Hearst?
Oh my!
You've
yes.
told the kids about this many
Well,
times.
yes, I have,
right?
because I think Senator George Hearst is very pleased and happy with the thoughts of having 104 delegates come to Washington when they have this opportunity, and he himself was a senator representing California. He was voted in that position when he came up for the re-election, and his opponent was saying he's so dumb, he thinks B-Y-R-D spells bird, and Senator George Hearst said, well, if it doesn't spell bird, what does it spell? He was elected, and he passed away in 1891. But I always feel very close to the Senator George, knowing how much he would have loved to see something come along that, since he was a participant in the Senate here, he was a very great man. And his son was William Randolph Hearst. And my brother-in-law, and then my mother-in-law had 5 sons, all named Randolph, because that came from Phoebe's family. Phoebe Apperson Hearst was Senator George Hearst's wife, and they named all the boys Randolph, which is very confusing because it's not only George Randolph Hearst, it is William Randolph Hearst, it is John Randolph Hearst, and it's plain Randolph Hearst and his twin David.
That's right.
So that's why it's most confusing when somebody gets all of these Randolphs mixed into that.
Well, they're wonderful people. Now, you know, I know that you have learned to appreciate presidents of the United States, senators, oh my, everywhere, all these states, and they've cooperated with you. Would you just like to talk about that for a moment or two?
Well, I just can't go into all the credit I give to these wonderful senators that have participated in the program. They speak to the kids. I mean, if somebody knows the President of the United States and they come to Washington and he can open the doors for them, but that's all. He's not going to, the person they're sending, where he has opened the door, are not going to hear Alan Simpson make a speech. And, well, I could go through Robert Dole, all of them that have been co-chairmen of the program for the many years. And it's a wonderful opportunity for these young people.
Well, the young people come here just absolutely overwhelmed, and they leave here emotionally drained.
Yeah.
And they don't even like to possibly wash their hands because they've probably shaken hands with the president and the senators,
have said that.
Supreme Court justice,
Yeah.
you know. Doesn't that thrill you, though?
And one little girl said, I shook hands with him 3 times because I started at this end, and then I went down to the middle, and then I went down to the end. So I shook hands with him 3 times.
And that's a great thrill for you, but it's because of what you mean to the young people that they have a memory that is so warm and so personable. You have a special touch in showing your love to the young people called the Alumni. Let's talk about the Alumni for a moment.
Well, I'm so proud of all of them, and I have now senators serving in their home states. And I just received a letter before I left my home in Palm Springs, California. And I was reading it, and he was saying something about the young people in the court. I thought he was talking about tennis. But no, he is a Supreme Court justice in his home state. And he was talking about the cases that he sits on with these young people when he has them in his court. So you see a lot of funny things have happened on that. And some of the funny things, I don't know if you want to know about that, but like I said to this one woman when I called the parents, and I said, and this is Mrs. George Hearst, and I'm calling from Washington, D.C., and quickly I say, Johnny is standing right here, he's going to say hello, because they think I just put him on the plane, and Mrs. Hearst is calling from Washington. And so I assure them right away that their son or daughter is standing there and going to talk to them themselves. And when I said, and I'm Mrs. Hearst, and she said, yes, and I'm the Queen of Sheba.
They didn't believe.
They
didn't believe it was really you.
No.
I've been right by you when that...
And many years ago, when they were hijacking planes to Cuba, I finished my little story and said, you don't have to worry about him. He's going to be well taken care of. And so I handed him the phone to talk to his mother. And he says, hi, Mom, I'm in Havana. And I said, when you get off the phone, I'm going to kill you. Then I got the phone back, and she said, don't worry, Mrs. Hearst, he's been that way all of his life. But my kids are leaders. They are our future. You've heard a lot about young people and their future. And let me tell you, I can certainly verify the fact that these that are involved in a program such as this, and they earn it by getting here to Washington, they are the leaders. And I have proof of that every day.
Well, you say you have proof of that. Is that because you get letters from them, and do you not write them? How about, I know you write a magnificent letter, long letter, every Christmas and talk about them.
Oh,
Tell
well,
us
that's
about
a Christmas newsletter.
Okay.
And then I just write in it. I don't write about Aunt Minnie going to South Dakota to see somebody, but it's all about their own colleagues. And I don't put them by the year in the newsletter, because I think, well, if I'm taking the time to write it, they're going to have to read it before they come to 1981 when they were a delegate. And just yesterday, one of the delegates was saying, I always look right for my own year and see what they're doing. And I said, that's why. That's why. They're all mixed up. So you have to read the whole letter.
Well said. And it works.
Oh, yes.
Everybody reads it.
Oh, yeah.
Or when I get it, and I'm not the delegate, I just have to read it right away.
Yeah.
And I hear the young people say this. It means so much to them. That's because you care,
Oh, yes.
and we're grateful
Well,
for that.
I do. And people say, I don't know why you work so hard, because this it's not just the week I'm here in Washington. It goes on the whole year. And with my wonderful secretary, Gladys Hundley, who types, I don't care what the kids write on, even some of them are typed letters, of course, but others aren't, so she types them, and they all go in this book that I was telling you about, that one wall of my home
Yes.
in Palm Springs, are letters from these delegates. It's the newsletter, they seem to enjoy very much. And there's a lot of research on that, of course. So I don't know what else to say
I think you're saying it well.
about that.
What you say is that you care by what you're
Well,
reporting,
when they
and
say,
the kids
why
love
do
you.
But they say, why do you work so hard? And I just pull a letter from one of my former delegates and say, read this letter, and now you will know why.
I'm going to ask you another question. You've lived in Palm Springs for many years, and I know personally how much you're appreciated and loved and invited to every charitable get-together that you can think of. They're all valid, marvelous charities. You have time to do that, too, don't you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm
you have
a
for
founding
years.
member of most organizations in Palm Springs and the College of the Desert and the Cultural Center. But my main love is my kids.
The United States Senate Youth Program,
Mm-hmm.
funded by the William Randolph Hearst Foundation.
Exactly.
And you have represented the Hearst family, the Hearst Foundation, for 34 years.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you a couple more questions. May I?
Of course.
You've received all kinds of honors. Just give us a couple at least. Would you mind? You're not bragging. We just want people to know that people
Well,
love you and you've been honored.
Just before I left home, this is a cougar button, and I was made an honorary cougar from the University of Washington. And when
They have a football team, don't they?
well, sort of. They're good.
They're
But
good.
now then, when the Washington delegates came in yesterday, and I said, are you a husky or a cougar? He said, I'm a husky. And I said, oh, I was just honored by becoming a cougar. So anyway, that's what that little button is. But, oh, I have all kinds of stories such as that.
You got another one? Give us one more. I'm asking,
Well,
if you will. You got a suggestion, something in Palm Springs or?
oh, you
one-
mean some of the
yeah,
charities?
like one of the universities, like Washington State. I know you've been honored elsewhere.
Yeah, in Texas and different places, but I don't really
Yeah, but that
want to
that-
talk about me.
Well, but that Texas, well, I'd like you to just give another example. That Texas story is beautiful. Why don't you just tell us when you were in Texas and the honor you received there? Would you mind doing that for me?
Well, what can I tell you about that? Being at the school and some of my former delegates
Yes.
met me there, and we were. I was just talking to them in a group, and one of the kids spoke up, not one of my delegates, said, how many presidents have you known? And that really took me back a little bit because I had to stop and think.
Sure.
I've
you
known
would.
them since John Kennedy was president. That's when the program got started, when he was president. And if you read the letters I had through the years, they are history
They are.
because of all of the events that are happening in the world these kids write to me about is different than a survey. Like the office will send out a survey, and but these kids write to me as mom, and they give me all of the information that is going on in their lives. That is more than just making an X if you did this or if you did that. They really write from the heart, and I can't throw those letters out. I just, I don't know what we are or I am going to do with them. I've thought about the congressional record, but then I find that the Senate here has a library, and perhaps maybe they would be interested in reading a letter from 1962 right on up to 96. There are a lot of information from these kids that you don't ordinarily get. I think what makes this program unique is the fact that I am interested in what's happening in their lives. And one of the delegates said to me one time, well, I won a scholarship here, or I won another trip to my state capital, and different foundations like Ford has funded, but I never met a Ford. I don't know, it's my family. These delegates are my family, and I love them.
Well, when you say I love them, that's what you just said.
Yeah.
Would you want to just say, where are you sitting right now, and in what part of America are you in right now?
At the Washington, D.C. Mayflower. And one of my former delegates is making this tape, Raymond Fothey. He was a Nevada delegate, and he and his associate came down from New York to make this tape for me, and
Isn't that nice?
I'm very grateful to have it for my archives.
And we are just starting, as of last evening, our United States Senate Youth Program,
Exactly.
our 34th year.
Yeah,
And you're Mom Hearst.
I am Mom Hearst.
And already the kids, I shouldn't say kids, I don't do that in front of them.
Well, I
But,
do it. They told
well,
me
you
not
do.
to say
I guess I wasn't too wrong
But
with
they
it.
told me not to say kids
Yeah,
years
you're
ago,
right.
but they are my kids.
The
So what can I
delegates,
say?
the kids, your
Right,
kids,
the
they're not mine, they're
students,
yours.
yeah,
And
they're my kids.
Yes, and so we're just starting, again, this program. And I know you because I've been with you all these years.
Yes, you
Tell
have.
me, are you excited about, as soon as we're through doing this, you're going to be with the young people?
Oh, yes, we're having dinner downstairs tonight, and it just goes on from here, and we have a great agenda. I'm
Sure.
sorry I don't have the time to read the agenda to you, but we have such wonderful speakers, and the ambassador from Great Britain, and Senator Hutchison from Texas.
That's right, the lovely
And
ladies.
she's speaking. So we have really a tight agenda. Oh, and the Supreme Court, when we go to the Supreme Court, then they're going to, we're going to meet there. And he is a great justice.
He's outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
And you will be entertaining the senators at the big reception, where we'll have probably more senators at that occasion, except for a major roll call on the Senate floor as our guests.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Oh, yes.
That's this Wednesday, right? When
That's
you,
Wednesday.
Randolph Hearst, will be saying
Grading
hello
all
and
the
thank you for
signatures.
coming
Yeah.
and all that kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Right. We have that time.
You know, something else I think people like to hear before we begin to wrap this up in a few moments, if that's okay with you. I know your time is heavy. Last night, one of the delegates called the Senate Youth Program the Rolls Royce of all youth programs
Yeah.
that
That's
come
right.
to Washington. And there are a lot of programs that come to Washington.
Oh, yes.
And they're good programs.
Yes.
You and I know many of them. And yet, this very experienced former delegate stood with you and said, this is the Rolls-Royce, the United States Senate Youth Program, of all the youth programs that come to the Washington, would you concur with that?
Well, I think that's how
Go
they
ahead and
feel.
brag about it. This is
Well,
true.
that's how
isn't
they
it?
feel.
That's right.
Because they know our involvement with them during the time they are here.
Makes you
And-
feel good, too, doesn't it?
Oh, I should say. It's just, and when they say thank you, I say, don't thank me, you earned it.
No, they do.
You earned it. And of course, all expenses are paid for these delegates. We have 2 from the DDOD schools, which is the Defense Department overseas duty officers that are serving in foreign countries. And we have 2 from that division. We have 2 from the district, and we have 2 from each state, which with 50 states, we have 100 there. So that's where we arrive at 104
Right.
delegates.
And when you leave this room, you'll be going to meet with your young people, as you call them, your kids.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me asking this question. Where do you, or what do you want the program to be like 50 years from now?
Oh, goodness. That's kind of mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, isn't it? But you want it to still stay the caliber of
Oh, I would love for it to,
the
to stay.
class act, the Rolls-Royce.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
type of
sure it will always be in effect, and I just don't know how. I don't know how it could improve, actually.
Well, I don't know either, to be honest with you.
No.
But you would know.
Because they see what is going on, and their eyes are just open to what is going on, and they've never had an opportunity like that. And I never had an opportunity like that. But of course, I would never have been able to pass one of these tests they give the kids either.
Well, times have changed
Oh.
and advanced. Look how
Oh,
they've advanced. Look at
no.
the questions. Why don't you just mention for a moment the kind of the questions that young people ask the Supreme Court Justice or the Vice President of the United States or the senators?
Well, if there are 2 senators standing there, like the co-chairman, and they have been brought together to meet the co-chairman starting the week, and one of the delegates will ask a question of one senator, and or both senators, and one senator will stand aside and says, "Okay, you answer that one." I mean, the senators themselves enjoy this this association with their delegates.